That's incredible. From there to going on Shark Tank to doing like such amazing work. Well done.
Thank you.
Today's really special because I think I've looked up to you for a lot of things. What is a lesson you can tell us about from the Gita that can help us with relationships?
Whatever you need for your spiritual journey will always come to you. You just need to have that faith and keep going. I don't think the problem is with religion. The problem is with us being human and where we are, right?
So we ask everyone who comes on the podcast, what's your iDare moment?
A lot of ways starting Hubu. Everything with Hubu was, I'm not going to say like easy, I didn't have to do any work. No, I wish. But more effortless, right? Like it feels like you have good shock absorbers through the journey.
Yeah. Hi everyone, welcome to iDare presents Breakfree, a safe space to unlearn and overcome patterns, habits, beliefs, or relationships that don't serve your well-being or holding you back. I'm Bama Baldota, the founder and CEO of iDare, and your host for this evening. With me, I've got Yeshoda, who is the co-founder and CEO of Huvu and also a facilitator of Bhagavad Gita classes. Welcome, Yeshoda.
Thank you, Mom. I'm very excited to be here.
Same. And today's really special because I think I've looked up to you for a lot of things, whether it's advice or shared experiences that you've had, whether it's in business or in spirituality. And I'm so grateful that you're here today talking to us.
No, I'm so excited to be here, and I'm a big fan of iDare and the work that you're doing. So, yes.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll start off right by going into the deep end. I think what you've done with Huvo is very incredible, and the kind of person you are is like I mean, you're an inspiration. There are a lot of reasons why we are who we are and why we're at where we are. And I wanted to understand from you, like, what was your childhood like? Where did you grow up? What are some of these experiences that shaped you, and why did you start Huvu? Like, did that lead you to start Huvu?
So in terms of my childhood, so I'm one of three siblings. Grew up in a happy household. My parents were entrepreneurs. They started their business the year I was born. So being exposed to that definitely played a really big role in starting my own business. And growing up, I always felt like I would because that's what I saw around me. And like all our initial holidays were our parents' work trips essentially, which they made it seem like was this fun adventure that we were going on. So that exposure helped a lot. But I was always someone who was extremely underconfident, which was weird in my family because my parents and my sisters are all very confident. So first they thought it was my school, they moved schools, and then they were like, no, this is just a defect in who she is. Because I was always, like doubting myself and so on. So when I came back from college, I worked with my parents for some time, and then I was trying to start something on my own. But even then, obviously, I had a lot of doubts, and just having that confidence thing kind of played out. And you have so many doubts when you're starting something by yourself, and especially then, I kept asking myself if I could take on such a big responsibility. But around then, I started attending Bhagavad Gita classes, and that really gave me a lot of clarity and being able to take that step forward and actually launch Hubu. But the biggest reason that like helped me get there is my co-founder and sister Ria. She gave me the ultimate push. Initially, she wasn't my co-founder either. She was in the US in college, and I was just that annoying sister that would keep calling her and being like, Ria, I have this problem, I have that problem. And when I was complaining before I started as well, I was like, oh, I want to do this, but I just kept going down the list of problems. And she's like, if you want to do it, what's holding you back? Just do it. And she always has these simple one-liners that really hit home. And I think I needed to hear that day. And then after that, I definitely poached her away from the US, convinced her to join me, and we started to go together.
That's incredible. From there to going on Shark Tank to doing like such amazing work. Well done.
Thank you.
So do you still deal with underconfidence like you were speaking about? Like, and I understand like that when you start something doesn't mean that like that fear doesn't exist. Like fear is in the absence of doing what you're set out to. So I also want to understand, do you still feel that way, and when you do, what do you do?
Yes, a lot. and that imposter syndrome, I think we've all heard everybody talk about it at this point, but it is a reality, right? I do feel that quite a bit. But as you rightly said, fear is not the absence of that courage or whatever. It's just kind of knowing that that fear exists and still doing whatever you need to do. So I guess that's what I've gotten better at doing, and just having more clarity. I think the more you put yourself out there and try different things, it's like a muscle that you're using. And I read somewhere where someone was like, try to fail at least 10 times a day. And that's so weird for like all of us overachievers who've grown up to
Yeah.
told to be perfect. But just thinking about failure as a game, that I have to put myself in situations to at least try to fail X number of times, means that it's not that scary anymore, and you can always like get yourself back up. There as well, the Gita really helped me, because there's a concept in the Gita called Karma Yoga, right? And it talks about doing actions without expectations, doing actions as an instrument of the universe or instrument of God, whatever you want to call it. I think that helped me with the confidence part a lot, because whenever I thought about it as, can I do this and can I take this up, you always feel like you're not the right person or you're not good enough. But when I was like, okay, God has put me in this place and I'm going to try my best and leave the rest to God, it helps, right? And then you're like, I'm not on this journey alone. Of course, I forget all the time, but I keep reminding myself about this.
Okay. So if I'm getting what you're saying right, the concept of karma yoga is sort of like I'm put in where I am right now, with whatever the circumstances are, which family I'm born into, what I'm doing for a purpose.
Mhm.
And I think that would be a great reminder, like you said, right? When you're feeling like, why am I even here? Why do I have to go through this? Then being reminded that you probably chose, or like you were put, do you choose it, or is it like it's chosen for you?
In a sense, it's kind of like your soul is choosing this journey for yourself based on the actions that you've done in the past and based on the lessons that you need to learn, right? The larger idea of any spiritual text is self realization, where you get to know yourself, however you want to describe that self realization. So, whatever is in your path is to get you to that realization. Karma Yoga becomes one path where you use actions to realize yourself. And the idea is that you're not creating something, you're just recognizing who you are, you as the soul. And that's through the day-to-day actions that you do by connecting them to the divine, seeing yourself as an instrument, and so on. So that concept, I don't know if I answered your question right or I missed something,
Yeah.
but like that kind of changes how you look at life. And a lot of times when difficult things happen, whether it's at work or in our personal life, the first question that comes to our head is, why me? Like, why is this happening to me? Why is my life so hard? Everyone else has it so easy. And that narrative goes on and on. But then when you realize that your soul kind of chose this for you and you're exactly in the place that you need to be, it's very empowering, because you're like, okay, I am. It's like a video game and there are different levels, and you're at the level that you need to be. You're not at the level that maybe your friend is at or whatever, but you're where you need to be and you're completely equipped to deal with it, even if you don't realize it in that moment. So then it gives you that courage to be like, okay, let me take my time, take a deep breath, and then like deal with whatever I need to deal with.
Yeah. I think that also helps a lot when you're comparing yourself, right? And I feel like as entrepreneurs, it is very easy to like compare yourself to others or anyone in life, like from the way you look to what you're doing. It's like, oh, but they have it so easy, or but like they're doing so much better. Like, why can't I get there? Why is it taking so much more time for me? And I know I've felt that a lot of times. And I think what you're saying like really helps put that to ease, that like I am where I'm meant to be right now, regardless of where other people are, because that's their journey and this is mine. Before all of this, I want to go back to how did you get into the Gita? Like, how did you start like facilitating these Gita classes?
So I think kind of growing up, I was in a very secure home, right? I knew exactly what kind of had to go on in my life. And I'm sure my parents had their own struggles, but they really shielded us against it, right? I came from a very happy household and had great relationships with my parents, my siblings, all of that. And all I had to do was study, get good grades, get to good college, and, so on. And I did all of that. But when I was in college in my last year, my dad fell sick. And I remember him calling me and he's like, hey, like, the doctor says I have heart failure. And I was like, I don't even know what that means. And it was such a shock. And he's okay now, thankfully. But that was the first time I think I had to deal with some sort of a crisis that was larger than me. Till then, also, I would whine all the time about silly things in my life. But this was the first, like, big thing. And then I came back from college. I came back a couple of months early, and I was with my family, and it was just a period of uncertainty. Generally, post college, I think a lot of people do go through that, because till then, you know exactly what you need to do next, and then suddenly you're like, what do I need to do now? There's so much to figure out in your 20s. There was that, and then there was also just a shift. Like, I was going to be in the US, I decided to come back to India. My dad's health was fragile. I was the oldest sibling. So, I think you really become an adult when you realize how, like, the mortality of your parents' lives, or the fragility of their, like, their health and stuff. Because till then we take everything for granted, right? And that was a really scary realization at 22 for me. I know a lot of people have to go through that at a much younger age, but that really shook me. And just because of all of just general uncertainty of being 22, not knowing what to do, I was just really confused. And I had a lot of free time, right? Trying to figure out how to be less confused. I couldn't. And then my mom was like, hey, my friend is taking these Gita classes. Do you want to come? I didn't know anything about the Gita. Just fresh out of college from the US, I really missed like India and everything. And I was like, oh, this sounds like an Indian book club. Like, let me go check it out, right? I was just bored, and I went with my mom. And the first thing Shani, and who's my facilitator in the class, said was, if your life was controlled by a remote control, are you going to throw that at everybody and dance to their tunes? And that has stuck with me.
Wow.
So, like, it's been what, like 8-9 years now. It stuck with me because I always used to play the victim card, right? I would always be like, why me? My life is so hard, like nobody gets it, blah blah blah. And that day went, and complain about things like, oh, if only this person didn't say this, I would be happy, or whatever, because I always thought happiness was external. And when she said that, I was like, I'm literally throwing my remote control at everybody, my neighbor, Trump, like whoever, saying I'll dance to whatever misery you want to put me through.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, this is something that sounds interesting. And yeah, ever since I've been attending classes with her, and it was me and a lot of aunties. It was a lot of fun and learning. And that's when my facilitator was like, why don't you consider, just leading sessions with people your age? Because I think there is this faith gap in our generation.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people in the previous generations, there was a problem of blind faith. Not everybody, of course, but this idea that, oh, I just have to follow because everyone around me is following. We've been, really, like, that emphasis on critical thinking is a lot in our generation, which is good, but also to an extreme is not, right? Because blind faith and blind criticism are basically the same thing. You're just shutting something out or completely believing it without thinking about it. I think we kind of went to that end of the spectrum. I know I did, at least through college, and start questioning a lot of things about faith. So this really opened that up to me again, and in a logical way, in a way where I could question things, but I had to be aware that I wasn't questioning with an answer already made up in my mind, which is what we say is critical thinking, but a lot of times isn't, right? I'm like, I want to catch you say something wrong, but just going with an open mind. Honestly, I would say the Gita changed my life. Like, in my life, I'm like pre-Gita, post-Gita. And yeah, it has given me the courage to deal with everything. And obviously, you still have doubts, you still have problems, but when you have something to anchor yourself to, and for me, it was the Gita. For someone else, it could be something else, right? Meditation or whatever. It like the landing is softer. You have something to hold on to through whatever you're going through.
Yeah. That's so beautiful. And actually, this is something I believe in. I mean, I don't know how true and what it is, but I believe like a lot of us, this generation, a lot of our mental health issues is because we don't have grounding and anchors. Like, that can soften the blow, like you said, right? And that's why it's so much more severe. And to have that either in meditation or in spirituality or in like a lot of other things or in support systems is so incredible. And like a lot of times people don't have it, but I think, like you said, like if we keep going over the fact that we don't have it versus like not actively seeking it, then we'll never have it. Right? So moving away from that mentality to being like, okay, this is probably, I don't have it because this is my chance to go figure and explore which one fits me, and for me to get that, I think would make a big difference to their lives. Having said that, you said that like you were a person pre-Gita, post-Gita, right? And now that you have Gita in your life, while also like, when we were talking about it, you were like, you were there with a lot of old aunties. So when I, like a lot of people, I don't picture someone like you facilitating Gita classes. So do you get that a lot?
Yeah, and first I wouldn't say old aunties. They'll definitely
Sorry.
they'll kill me. I'm just kidding. But a lot of people, yeah, my mother's age, and yeah, I get it a lot. I mean, I less so now. I started facilitating classes when I was 25, and I started going for Gita classes when I was like 22. So back then, I used to get it more, but I think it it was a personal journey in that sense as well, because someone is 22 when I started, and I was also just in such a bad place mentally, and I had so much going on in my life externally as well that none of that mattered. I was like, I need this, right? Like, my class used to be Wednesday afternoons, and I was like, regardless of what is happening, I need to show up. My mom and I started together. She stopped coming, but I was like, I'm going. Like, I need this in my life, right? So that was great. When I was thinking of, just generally leading these discussions and stuff, and they are not teaching the Gita, right? You're just discussing like my learnings with people my age and so on. And I did have that little fear that, oh, how are people in my peer group gonna think about it? Like, are they gonna think like I knew what the Gita helped me with, but there are a lot of wrong perceptions, and of course this spectrum also exists about religion and spirituality. And as soon as you say you're spiritual or whatever, when people don't understand it, they assume you're a certain kind of person. And I didn't want to be associated with that. And I was like, oh, if I take these classes, are people going to assume those things about me? Or when I said I was in class and so on. And then I realized that was so stupid. Like, I was like, there's this text that has literally changed my life, has given me so much. And if I'm holding that opportunity back from someone else because I'm thinking they might judge me, like, I'm doing a disservice to them and myself. And so many times, like, where I felt like that conversation would come up and I would try to steer away, and then the other person would be like, wait, tell me more or whatever. And I would assume that they would judge me a certain way, and that person was like, oh, how do I come for this class or whatever. And then I was like, look, there's Krishna teaching me already that I'm judging the person in front of me based on no context. So yeah, that way I think it was a journey to figure out like my age and being able to be in these classes. But I truly believe that whatever energy you give out, the universe reciprocates it. And when I was starting, I'm like, oh my God, am I just going to lose all my friends? Like, they're going to think I'm a weirdo or something. And it just so happened. And I never asked any of my friends to join the class or something because I didn't want to come off as pushy. But my closest friends are in this Gita journey with me, and our conversations have evolved so much. Like, we still talk about the same kind of problems, but the way we talk about them, or when one of us complains, the way we're able to call each other out, but without any judgment, and just the frameworks we use, right? We're like, oh, you're going through this, okay, why don't you try this chatting or whatever. Like, it's just so different from our conversations before. And I've made so many deep friendships through the Gita as well, not just my friends that I've always had. So that way, I feel like my relationships are so much stronger because of that too. And uh, yeah, just being open to it and surrendering to this my spiritual journey, I think has opened up so much for me. And even now, I catch myself doubting myself in places or being like, oh, am I not like equipped to take this or whatever? But getting, just catching myself then and being like, this is not okay. I should not be thinking that way. And then saying, okay, now I surrender to the universe. If the universe wants me to do it, I do it. And then whatever happens, happens.
And that's really incredible, and I think it really helps for people who have this fear of being judged because of like what they believe in and stuff like that as well. So how did the Gita help you deal challenges when you're running Woo?
I think as founders, generally, we tend to take things very personally. If someone leaves the company, we're like, how can you leave me? Right? Like, that's how we feel. And then if a customer rejects a product or something, we're like, you rejected me. Like, something's wrong with me. And we get so anxious about every small thing. Something that may not even have bothered you day to day, suddenly you'll remember and it's like the biggest problem. And usually people only come to you when they have problems in the company, right? At some point, and then you're just firefighting continuously, which obviously has a huge impact on our mental health and so on. I think what the Gita really helped me with is getting over that personalization, right? We tend to think we're so much more important than we actually are. So we started Hugo in Feb 2019, and within 2 weeks, I fell sick. I had this really bad stomach ache, and nobody could figure out what was wrong. And I basically spent 1 year going hospital to hospital and taking all kinds of medication. And that medication made me really weak. So most days I just couldn't get out of bed. And I was so confused. I'm like, why is this happening? I started this new business, and how can I give it my 100% when I'm constantly shuttling from hospital to hospital? And on top of that, as like a 24-year-old who's sick, you feel weird because you're not supposed to be sick.
Yeah.
You look at your friends and you're like, everyone's healthy, everyone's out partying, everyone's out doing things, and I'm here laying in bed all day. So all of that plays on your mind. And then I really had to recognize that this wasn't about me. I had to get over myself essentially and be like, hoo hoo, okay, yeah, I started it, whatever. But everything that I'm doing is the universe's plan. Like me falling sick is also part of that plan, probably. And for whatever reason, I am sick. But now I just need to give it my best and then leave the rest to whatever has to happen. And now when I look back, in no way does it feel like we slowed down that year. Ria obviously had to do a lot more than she signed up for. My team had to step up a lot. But overall, like in so many ways, it just feels like so many things fell into place the way they were supposed to, or whatever it was. And that only, like, I had to have that faith that that would happen, right? And that is the universe's plan. And so much about spirituality also is that you don't own anything. It's not my business or my company, and why are you leaving me? I'm like a trustee that's been put in charge here. And as a trustee, I have responsibilities. I can't shirk off those responsibilities. I have to take it seriously. But that's it. Like, I can't make it about myself. And when you do that, it gives you a lot more clarity in dealing with issues that come up and everything. It also takes away that personal greed a lot, because and that fear. A lot of times we make bad decisions because I'm like, what about me? If I don't do this, and I know it's cruel or I know it's not fair, but no one's going to look out for me here. But when I say, well, the same God is looking out for me and this company and the person, right? Like who I'm dealing with in whatever scenario, I just need to do the best and like hope that things work out, which they will. I think that gave me a lot of faith. There's this beautiful shloka in the Gita. It's from chapter 9. I won't say the whole shloka, but there's one phrase in it where he says, Yoga Kshema Vahamyaham, where Krishna is saying that whatever you need in your journey, I will carry to you. And I find that so powerful, right? It's a reminder that you just need to do your best and the universe will give you whatever you need. Like, that doesn't mean he's not saying anybody that follows the Gita, you become a billionaire tomorrow. Like, whatever you need for your spiritual journey will always come to you. You just need to have that faith and keep going. And yeah, and so whenever things get tough in at Hubu or otherwise, it's a good reminder to be like, okay, it's okay, like just recognize that whatever's happening is happening for a reason, and then do your best, and whatever has to happen will happen. Some things will not work out, but they're probably not working out for some larger reason that I don't know today.
Yeah, that's incredible. Sometimes it is possible that this can become an excuse you also tell yourself, right? That like, I just have to sit back and things will happen to me, right? But from what I see in you, I don't see that at all. I feel like you're one of the most hardworking people I know in every realm of your life. And how do you find that detachment to know that it's not all about you, but you still have a very strong part to play, and like there is something that you have to do for things to happen? How do you get that balance?
That's a great question, and I feel like that's something I'm constantly trying to figure out myself as well. And a lot of times when things don't go a certain way, you blame yourself also, right? Like maybe if I tried a little harder, or maybe if I did this or did that. And once I did ask my facilitator that question, I was like, what do you do when you feel like you didn't give it your 100%, which is why it didn't work out? She's like, ask yourself what held you back from giving that 100%, and how can you make sure that doesn't happen again? And that was so simple, but it gave me a lot of clarity, because a lot of times we're just blaming ourselves. But when you take that step back and when you think about it, sometimes you're like, no, I did actually try. Like at the capability that I'm at right now, I really couldn't have done more. And sometimes you're like, no, I couldn't actually give it my best because I was so scared, or I was so anxious, like I didn't know what to do, or whatever it was. And okay, I felt anxious, and now it's not to sit and be like, why did I feel anxious? But what can I do to then get over that anxiety? My responsibility becomes to work on those inner demons, and then the outer demons will anyway be taken care of. We keep focusing on these outer problems without thinking about what is going on in our mind. And when I started looking at it that way, right, it helped me take responsibility but not make it personal. And that trustee example or metaphor really helps me, because there I and we know at some level, we know when we're not giving something 100%. Sometimes we might have a little doubt, but the more we like introspect, it becomes clearer. But when I look at myself as a trustee, I'm like, I do have to take up these responsibilities. I do have to do this. But there's only so much that I'm doing, and there's a larger play. And that works both ways, even when things go well. Because when things go well, we forget everybody. We forget who's God. You're like, yeah, I'm so smart. I figured this out, whatever. But that's when you need to remind yourself that there is so much that has happened where I don't even know how it fell into place, or the opportunity just kind of comes to you. In both situations, like being balanced about it helps when you have this larger perspective.
That makes sense. So, essentially, what you're saying is doing your part, but also being detached to the you when you're doing that part, right?
Yeah, and usually this word detached, in generally the English language, we look at it as a very negative word, like as though I'm numb or I don't care. But detachment in Sanskrit, which is called vairagya, is a different concept where it's you're detached to the expectation or like the outcome of the action. You give your best to the action, and the idea is that we're all one, we're part of this universe. Then what our responsibility is to contribute, because we're taking so much, right? Like just by existing, by breathing, by eating, whatever, you're taking so much from the universe. It's your responsibility to give back in whatever form, through all the responsibilities that we have, as a daughter, as a employer, employee, whatever it is. So when you look at it that way, you are able to get yourself to give there, because you don't look at it as, oh, I am doing so much here. You're like, oh my god, this is my responsibility. I have so much more within me to give. I just need to be able to do that.
Yeah. That's so nice. I feel like what you said about how detaching yourself and seeing yourself as a trustee more than an owner really helps in like work. What is a lesson you can tell us about from the Gita that can help us with relationships?
There's this one line that I really like, and one of my friends, she does this beautiful art and she sketched it out. Maybe I'll send it to you later. And she said, divinize your relationship with humans and humanize your relationship with the divine. And I think it's so beautiful because it just changes your perspective. And what does that essentially mean, right? When you're saying humanize your relationship with the divine, usually when we think of God, we think of this like supreme character and everyone's scared, and God fearing is like a big idea. But when you say humanize your relationship, you're saying build a relationship with the divine. However you see the divine, right? Whether you see it as Krishna or Lakshmi or whichever form, or just as the universe or energy, it doesn't matter, but kind of making that relationship something personal, and recognizing that however you see the divine, like he, she, it, whatever it is there to get you through this journey, and it's like someone that's holding your hand through it. The favorite like idea that I like to use there is like, when you're a kid and you have to go to the doctor, you have to get that injection and it's going to be painful, but you're holding your mom's hand. It's not like holding her hand is going to take that pain away, but knowing that she's next to you and you're like able to squeeze her hand, it just feels a little better. You still have to go through the pain yourself, but it's nice to have that support, right? So I feel like that's the relationship we need to build with the divine. Like I still need to deal with whatever's going on in my life, but I have this support of the supreme, or whatever you want to call it. And inversely, when it comes to relationships with the people around us, we usually take it for granted, right? And we have certain expectations and all of those things. And when you say divinize your relationship with humans, it's recognizing that this soul or God, the idea is that God exists in all of us. God is not separate from me. So that same God exists in me and the same God exists in you. And that's the idea behind saying namaste as well, right? And how can I connect with that divine or that deeper form within you, rather than being like, oh, Vama is this person that looks like this, says this, she's nice to me when I say this, she's not nice to me when I say that, or whatever it is, right? Because that's where we get stuck most of the time. That realization helps. And also just recognizing that everyone's on their own journey. Like usually when someone says something, again, we take it so personally. Like you hurt me, but you said something. I chose to get hurt. And yeah, like most times I might choose to get hurt when you say that, but that's something that I need to work on, which is separate from you. That I think the Gita has given me a lot of perspective on. And there's this really nice, and when it comes to expectations, like it's so hard to think about it as how do you not have an expectation in a relationship, because you're like, oh, isn't it give and take, or you're constantly worried that you might be taken for granted if you don't have expectations. And there's this metaphor that Ramdas gives where he's like, when it comes to different trees, you don't go and you don't look at a pine tree and say, oh my god, why aren't you giving me like beautiful roses or whatever, right? Or you don't go try to like eat a berry from a poisonous tree and then blame the tree saying, why are you poisonous? Then you say, why do you go eat that poisonous berry? You go eat the fruit or whatever, right? But when it comes to people, we're always trying to tweak them. We're like, oh,
Yeah.
you're nice, but only if you were a little like this, or you will change this about yourself or whatever. But when you look at someone and you accept them for who they are, that doesn't mean you're complacent. Like, you know someone's going to hurt you in some way. Don't put yourself in that situation with them. Obviously, easier said than done, and sometimes it's unavoidable. But most of the time, we are able to kind of correct for that rather than being like, you did this to me or whatever. Like, a poisonous berry is going to poison you if you're going to go eat the berry, right?
Yeah.
Just like, of course, very simply said, applying it takes lifetimes, I think. But when you have that idea in your head, it becomes easier to deal with expectations that we have with the people in our life.
That's true. I think what you said is so beautiful and keeps reminding me of this thing that like acceptance is not the fact that like I'm okay with whatever you're doing and tolerating it. It's more like I know this is who you are, or this is what you do. So it's my decision now if I want to continue putting myself through it or not.
Everything in the Gita is in the context of dharma, and the idea of dharma is following the laws of the universe, doing your duty, right? And if you see something that's wrong according to the laws, right, like where it's hurting somebody or violating something about someone or whatever, and you're in a position to take action, you have to. It's not like it's a good to do, it's your responsibility as a human that's put on this universe. And that's the idea behind the Gita, where Arjun says, I don't want to fight. And he says, these Kauravas, they're very bad. They've done all these bad things, but it's okay. I'm not going to fight. And Krishna says, who told you that you have that choice? First of all, you can't judge them. You don't have that right to be like they are bad or they're good. But given that there is something bad that has happened and you are a warrior, you have to fight. When whether you choose to fight or not, the fight is going to happen. It's your choice whether you're going to be on the right side or the wrong side. That's the only choice, right? So when you look at it that way, you don't become complacent, but you're focused on the action, not judging the person.
Yeah.
And most times we don't act. We just sit and judge. We say, oh, this person did this person did that. But when you accept somebody and you recognize that, like, this is maybe a controversial thing to say, but it's easy for us to be compassionate towards a victim, and there's so much hate towards a perpetrator. But I personally feel like we've progressed in our spiritual journeys when we can have empathy for that perpetrator and be like, how much pain were you in that you thought it was okay to inflict pain on another person? That doesn't mean excusing their behavior in any way. You do outwardly whatever you need to do, right? And take actions. But when you recognize that, that's when I think we really feel like that oneness in the universe, and recognize that pain in any part of the body is pain, right?
Yeah.
Like, same way pain in any part of the universe is going to continue to cause pain. You have to do what you have to do about that pain, but recognize that it exists because of a root cause. It's not that because someone's a good person or a bad person. I don't think it's that easy to just make that judgment.
Yeah. I'm just gonna take a second to take it in. I think what you spoke about, like we speak about a lot in like mental health and trauma, about like how like hurt people, but like we don't realize how a lot of things that we say today, whether it's in mental health or pop psychology or whatever, are things that are learned and passed on to us through like spiritual texts and stuff like that. And it's always very easy to like be like, no, I believe in this form and I'm not in this form. But how do you differentiate that spirituality from religion? Because I know a lot of people don't want to be associated with religion, but they also get scared of spirituality because they are like, it is very interlinked with religion. So how can you differentiate? What is the differentiation between religion and spirituality?
I think at the end of the day, whatever makes you a kinder person is what you just need to do. And for someone, it's running. For someone, it's meditation. For someone, it's painting. For someone, it's a certain religious form or spirituality, right? Spirituality is essentially getting to know yourself. And I always say self with a capital S, like what that soul or the inner being or God, whatever, all those terms are interchangeable. Religion gives you a framework to do that. When I first started on this journey, also, I'd be like, I'm spiritual, I'm not religious. And at some point, I realized I'm playing into that narrative, right? I'm creating that like a negative distinction in a lot of ways. Religion is very, very powerful when used the right way, because a framework helps. Like, it says, okay, get to know yourself. Sounds great. Now, how do I do that, right? Religion allows you to do that in a framework. It gives you a support system in a lot of ways, and that's why, like, church groups and temple groups, all of those exist, because that support system really helps you move forward in your journey and so on. I don't think the problem is with religion. the problem is with us being human and where we are, right? Like when we don't want to accept that we are part of this oneness of the universe, we want to constantly cause division. Whatever it is, right? I could cause division saying you're tall, you're short, like nationality, and then religion becomes one more reason to cause that division. But I don't think any religious text at its core asks us to divide, right? Even when it talks about following a text or not, and a lot of times there are certain harsh words that are used saying that someone that doesn't follow this is a sinner. The idea is not for someone to sit and say you're a sinner, I'm not a sinner. It's to recognize that when you are not trying to get to know yourself, automatically you will sin because you will cause division, right?
Yeah.
But because getting to know yourself is recognizing oneness in the universe. And if I don't recognize oneness, without knowing, I will constantly cause division because I'm working from a place of fear, a place of the unknown in a lot of ways. But that gets misinterpreted to divide more. I think that's a human problem, not a religion problem. And for some people, that framework of religion helps. For some people, it doesn't. But I think we just need to be aware to not discount any of it and be open-minded, right? I think we're all smart people. We can use our minds. Like, use everything as I always say. Think about, like, even when I'm doing the Gita with people in my class and stuff, I always say think about it as a scientific experiment. You don't enter an experiment saying this will fail or this will succeed. You don't know, but you have a hypothesis. You can't not have a hypothesis, and you want the hypothesis to succeed. Then you experiment with it, and to experiment, you have to put yourself in the context where you can test out this knowledge, right? And truly, you don't try it once. You don't do one trial and say it succeeded or failed. But then what do we do, right? Like if there's a religious practice that's taught to us or a class or something, we'll go once or twice and then we'll be like, oh, it's not for me. Like maybe it's for others. But would you do the same thing in a scientific experiment? You need to have a certain number of trials and then you come up with a conclusion. So do that for yourself. Like I think that's a responsibility that we all owe to ourselves of trying out different things to help us be better.
Yeah, makes sense. I want to go back to what you spoke about, like about getting to know yourself and like more as in the capital self, which is like the higher self, right? And I think something that I keep going back to is the idea that to know yourself, you have to forget yourself, right? Which is like you have to forget that this is how I'm meant to be, this is who I am. Like we label ourselves with a million things every day, like whether it is the roles we play or like the kind of behaviors we have. Like I'm constantly telling myself I'm shy, I'm an introvert, and stuff like that. But that's actually keeping me away from actually realizing who I truly am. Is there something in the Gita that speaks about this?
Okay, this is like my favorite story. I don't know if it's too much of a digression, but I'm going to say it anyway. So the beginning of the Gita, like how it starts, is in the Mahabharata. Right? Generally, we all have the context. The war is about to happen. Arjun is like ready to go fight Krishna as his charioteer, and he starts off very confident. He's like, I'm going to fight. I'm going to vanquish these people. All of those things. On the other side are his cousins, the Kauravas. And he keeps talking about them as the other, right? Like you have to go fight this battle against them. Krishna doesn't say anything in chapter 1. Till chapter 2, he's quiet. So Arjun says, take me into the war or whatever, right? And then Krishna takes him. But where does he take him? He takes him and puts him in front of Bhishma and Dronacharya. Bhishma, who is his great grand uncle, who he's like grown up with and everything, and Dronacharya, who was his teacher. Till then, Arjun was like ready to fight this war, and it always felt like these enemies that are external to me. And then when he put him in front of these two people that he loved a lot and who actually brought him up, it made the war very personal. And then he's like, I can't fight. This is my family, these are these people, they might be bad. And he'll say they're on the wrong side, but I can't fight anymore, right? And what Bhishma represents, I won't go into too much detail, but Bhishma represents our habits and our general habit patterns, right? Where we don't want to change who we are. Dronacharya represents our self-interest, where we constantly prioritize our self-interest over what is right. And whenever we want to change ourselves or evolve and grow, it always feels like I need to change all these other things, right? I'll make a to-do list, I'll get rid of this, I'll clean my room, I'll get rid of all the toxic people in my life, whatever. But the true toxicity lays in a lot of things that I am doing every day. My habit patterns, which I'm not willing to change, the way I think, where it's like, I'm like this, I'm so and so, I'm whatever. And in that self-interest where I think I'm different from others, better or worse, both. And that ego kind of plays in. And when Arjun is ready to fight, Krishna says, okay, yeah, you fight all those external enemies, but the first two that you need to fight are these your own habits and your own self-interest, which we try to put off, and that's what scares us, right? And that's exactly what you said. Like all these labels that I have created for myself, am I willing to challenge them? I don't need to get rid of them in a day, but recognize that they are holding me back. They may be holding me back. Am I willing to even experiment with that?
Yeah. Wow. I think this is so beautiful, especially for this podcast, because the objective of this podcast is to help you, like, let go of all of these patterns that are not that are not serving you and that are holding you back, and to see that from a spiritual angle and from the story you said, it's really, really incredible. Thank you for sharing it. um for someone who wants to like learn about the Gita, or start taking Gita classes, what can they do?
So I always say, kind of reading the Gita on your own. For some people, it might work. I usually don't encourage it because it's a higher text, right? And the point is not to just understand the story behind it. It's to say, how can I grow through it? I always say the Gita is like an instruction manual to life, right? But usually, whenever we read something, what do? We try to break it down to where your intellect is at, and you're like, I'm here, so this is where I want to bring it. So when you read something like this, also we're like, oh, this person in my life is like Bhishma. This person in my life is like Duryodhana or whatever, without realizing that actually all of those characters are in your head, which is the point, right? And saying, how do I fight this battle that's happening in my mind? Because this is the true battle. Everything outside is like a simulation, it doesn't matter. So I always encourage people to kind of find a group through which they can learn. But having said that, there are a lot of great books and podcasts. I mean, there's so many commentaries on the Gita. Something that I personally connected with a lot was Swami Sarvapriyananda's podcast. It's called Vedanta Talks, and then he has YouTube videos and stuff too. It's in English, so it's a little easier for people that find it easier to learn in English. And also, I think he contextualizes it a lot to today's day and age, which is great. And Ramdas's podcast, he doesn't specifically talk about the Gita, but he talks about spirituality and Eastern spirituality a lot more, and references Gita in a lot of texts. That also, again, I think a lot of people our age are just able to connect with it better.
Yeah. Thank you. I think for me, like, my interest spiked in the Gita as actually once when we had a conversation about I was talking to you about something about suicide, and you told me how and honestly it like really changed a lot of things for me, because you said that you might end your life now, but you'll come back and have to go over the whole thing again. I don't think I'm saying it right, and I want you to say it, because I was at some point contemplating it quite a bit. And that's when you told me that. And like, I don't know what it is, but just that conversation with you, like every time that thought came up again for me, I told myself, I will have to do this again. And do I want to do this again if it's feeling so miserable right now? And I was like, no. And then I was just like, okay, I'm gonna make do with whatever situation I have now and try to overcome that instead of just finding ways to end it. And I want you to talk about what you said to me, please.
I think the first thing that helps is that in spirituality, the concept that keeps coming back, and the Gita also emphasizes this in different ways, is you're exactly where you need to be. And that means that whatever obstacles you have right now, you're perfectly equipped for that. Not more equipped, not less equipped. I'm not equipped for your life, you're not equipped for mine, but I'm equipped for mine today, right now. That gives us a lot of comfort when we feel like everything's coming at me, that like nothing is coming at me. This is video game. I'm at level 4. I'm ready for level 4. Let's go. Having said that, the idea is that your soul is going through a journey, and it goes through multiple lifetimes. And whether it's a human life, animal, plant, whatever it is, it's like different costumes you're wearing. Like today, I might be wearing this dress, and then if it rips, I say my dress ripped. I don't say I have been destroyed. And tomorrow, I wear a different dress if it rips, right? Same thing with the human body. Like the body is used till it serves its purpose. And when it no longer serves that soul's purpose, you move on to another form or whatever it is. So the soul's journey doesn't end when a lifetime ends. It continues. Only that outer instrument's life, journey ends. So when we know that, like a lot of things that we deal with today as well have to do with our past lives, have to do with the karma that we've kind of accumulated, good and bad, right? There's so many things that just have come to us easily in our life, whether it's with family or economic prosperity, whatever it is. And it's what has a child born into a rich home done that they deserve it, right?
Yeah.
It comes from your past lives. So when you know that larger context, I my soul is going through this journey. It's at point A. Now it has to deal with point A to go to point B. If I cut that journey short now, then next life will start again at point A, but it starts with a lot of accumulated karma around that as well. Because again, when you say it's not about me, I'm part of this larger universe, I have a responsibility to you as a fellow soul, like that human, divinizing your relationship with the human, and I have that same responsibility towards me. And if it's not okay for me to do something to you, it's not okay for me to do something to myself, because this body is also not mine. It's a gift. It's not a gift, sorry, it's a loan given by the universe, and it needs to go back to the universe. So I can't make that decision, right? And earlier, I think when I was younger, I used to hold a lot of anger when I heard about suicide, because I'm like, how can somebody do that and leave all these people behind? Like, how can they hurt the people that love them so much? And at some point, you realize that, but if someone is in so much pain that they're willing to forget about or numb themselves to the pain that they're going to cause to everybody else because they want to end theirs, like, that is a very difficult journey. And then you realize that, oh my God, like, anger is the first thing I need to get out of my head when I'm thinking about this. But that pain is something that you are equipped to deal with, and it definitely doesn't feel like that in that moment. But
Yeah.
I think that's a reminder we need to give ourselves and to the people around us. And that's what I mean by we're all just walking each other home. To some extent, if we can hold each other's hand, like, you're not dragging anyone on. Everyone's doing their own journey. But when you're holding someone's hand, you're like, okay, you're there, you're with me, like, we go on this together. I think that's all we can do for each other. And for ourselves, we have that responsibility where we can't, there's no escape. It's only going to come back harder. And we are equipped today. So, like, how do we get ourselves back up and push ourselves?
Yeah. Thank you. I mean, I think what you said today is like it was for me at least like a beacon of hope, right? To remind myself that I can deal with it, and I hope for like everyone listening, it will act like that. That you are equipped to deal with whatever life is throwing at you, and it might not seem like it right now, but things will get better because that's where we're going towards. Correct?
And just one parting thought that I wanted to say, right? I always say spirituality is like an anchor. And however turbulent the boat gets, it helps to have a strong anchor. And it doesn't have to be that the Gita is someone's anchor. It's my anchor. And I think it's a great anchor for everybody, but it may not be for someone. But whatever your anchor is, that anchor has to be stable. You can't have an unstable anchor, right? And a lot of times we try to anchor ourselves to our jobs or to our wealth or to our education or to family members. But none of those things can be stable, because all of these things are known to come and go, right? When it comes to a family member or any relationship, like, things in the relationship might change. Or when it comes to your success, like material success, like, success comes with failure. Some days will be good, some days will be bad. So by definition, everything in the world is changing, right? Like we say, the only constant is change. So something that's by definition unstable, how can it be my stable anchor? So we need to find something that's beyond instability, something that's stable as an anchor. For me, that was the Gita. Spirituality, I think in general, is always that, because it's seen as that constant, but in whatever form for whoever it is, like recognizing that there is a higher self within me, or if I want to look at it as outside me, whatever it is. But that anchor has to be stable, and only then I will feel stable holding on to it. I can't hold on to unstable anchors and then complain that it's unstable.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. I think that really helps because for a lot of people we rely on others, like our family, friends, to like be our anchor. And while that's so important, I think what you also said, right? We need to find that anchor beyond just other people, beyond like even ourselves in some ways, right? To a higher purpose. Because a lot of times when we speak of self love also becomes sort of like, I am my everything, and everyone else around me who's not serving me right now is toxic, and I don't want that. But to know that we're all part of just the play that we're playing is really, really important.
And everyone has a character to play. Today you might be my friend, tomorrow you might be playing the villain against me, but both are characters, right? Like, if you think about the universe, kind of like the human body, every part of the body has a different function, looks different. But if one part of the body forgets that it's serving this ecosystem, like, that's when disease comes in. And
Yeah.
where something happens where it's not helping the ecosystem, then that body part is seen as diseased or ill, right? The same thing with the universe. Like when we act as independent or like separate, we are causing disease essentially in the larger universe. And at the same time in the body, right? Like now, if I hurt my right arm, automatically my left arm steps up. Like it does more things, and it's so subconscious, you don't even think about it. Your arm becomes stronger, your legs, whatever, right? It's the same thing in the universe. Like sometimes when we look at someone else and they're not able to do something, we're like, but why me? Why should I do it? But when you look at it as we're part of this ecosystem, it's so natural to step up, because you're like, if you're weak, it's my responsibility to step up and help you. And when you see that different parts do different things and step up in different ways, like even in our life, right? If let's say I have a close friend and I'm going through something difficult, and she's helped me 9 out of 10 times, but the 10th time she's not helped me, and a total stranger has helped me, rather than focusing on this wonderful stranger who's helped me, I'm like, but she didn't help me. Look, even a stranger came and helped me, but she didn't help me. But when you say everybody is God just doing his own play and drama and coming to me, Ramdas says it's like everyone's like God in drag, right? And when you think about it that way, you're like, okay, today he came to me through Pari, tomorrow he's coming to me through this stranger. Like then it's not about Pari didn't help me, it's God is helping me in a different form. Or he had to teach me a lesson here to try to figure it out myself, which is why she didn't help me. Then you don't hold anything personally against others.
Yeah. I think that's really incredible, because a huge part of like mental health and like people's journeys is learning how to forgive. And like a lot of trauma and all of that happens because repair doesn't happen, and you're holding on to that trauma because you're not able to forgive it. And I think what you said today really helps with that as well. Okay, so our conversation has been so incredible, and I think I've learned so much from you, like I always do when I speak to you. Before I let you go, I wanted to ask you, so we ask everyone who comes on the podcast, what's your iDare moment? And what I mean by that is, a lot of times people ask me, like, why is your company called iDare? Because, it's not like warm, it's not like caring in that sense. But what they don't realize is it does take a lot of courage to like have faith win over fear in a lot of ways, right? And when things are against you, it takes a lot of like dare, I guess, in that sense, to actually um navigate that. So what is that moment for you, that when it felt like everything was against you, but you persevered through and you managed to like dare?
In a lot of ways, starting Hubu, I think right before starting it, it felt like, oh my God, there's so much that can go wrong. I'm so unequipped, and everything, it feels like I just need to make a decision and it's being like shoved against me or whatever. But then once you make that decision to be daring or like whatever, I feel like everything starts falling in place. So in a way, things were so hard, but I think when that mindset of mine changed, everything with Hubu was, I'm not going to say like easy, I didn't have to do any work. No, I wish. But more effortless, right? Like it feels like you have good shock absorbers through the journey.
Yeah.
So I think that would be my iDare moment. And I think that's a reminder that when you do dare, everything falls into place.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much, Yeshoda, for this today. And I feel like I've learned a lot. And I'm sure like this is gonna act as like a beacon of hope. And I'm gonna keep watching this again every time, I want to remind myself to not take things so personally, to like believe in the universe, to believe that we're all here for a reason. And I hope that is the same for all of you. Thank you so much for listening. And please subscribe to us to hear more such content. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.